Welcome to the creative side of things,
where we empower and inspire business owners and entrepreneurs to tap into their inner creative,
from standing out in saturated markets
to debunking and challenging the status quo.
We'll learn firsthand from actual small business owners how they've applied creativity, imagination, and common sense to grow their businesses. I'm Javier, Chief Creator and founder of High Ground Creative.
And I'm Megan, founder and CEO of Cheek & Co Clothing.
I'm Gen X and her dad.
I'm Gen Z and his favorite daughter.
Oh, that's debatable.
Well, it's not up for debate. Together we are creative thinkers,
design experts,
branding gurus,
imagination igniters,
and coffee addicts. Keep listening and we'll prove it to you.
Hey, you might learn something.
Imagine that.
Ready?
Let's get creative.
Megan.
It's good to be back.
Hello.
I feel like it's been a little bit. I mean, we had the girls on, but it just feels like I've been missing being in the studio, so I'm really excited to be back.
And I've recovered from not delivering the edited podcast last week.
Oh, yes. You let us down.
I was in a field position for about 30 minutes. Thank you, Megan.
It worked out so well with the episode we were posting about hustle culture, so I think it was perfect that you had to push it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that is okay.
Well, for those of you who don't know who we are, and this is the first time you see this, my name is Javier. This is
Megan.
So,
We're father and daughter, and this is our podcast, empowering and inspiring entrepreneurs to tap into their
inner creative. Because everyone's creative. Not everybody's artistic. There's a big difference, but everyone's creative. There's ways like leadership to learn these skills, and we're here to help you and walk in this path together and grow together. So our format, as everybody, if you've seen it, you know this. Sometimes we talk with each other, and we haven't argued.
We have topics. Yet. I know everyone has been asking us they want us to disagree.
Yeah, that's kind of scary. I expected some conflict sometimes, but we seem to.
People don't realize how. I mean, the whole reason we work together is because we get along, so we don't really disagree on a lot. So sorry for loving each other.
I love you, Megan.
We just agree with each other, but we're gonna find something that we disagree with, or come up with a segment where we have just one topic. Someone suggested pizza, pizza toppings.
You like pineapples, really? Don't pizza.
Yeah, I thought you would also, considering you're Puerto Rican. I thought you would like that. But
I don't know how to take that.
So I'm a little bit more Puerto Rican than you.
No. Okay, pineapples. Come on, man. That's all messed up.
But I wanted to share this creativity quote.
Yeah, we're going to start with that because we want to set a tone because we are here to tap into the inner creative. So give us a quote that you want to share with us today.
So this one is by Pablo Picasso, the myth, the legend. Mm-hmm. Creativity doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It fashions its own perfect moments out of the ordinary ones.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. A lot of people are so rushed in life, they neglect the mundane of everyday life, and there's miracles and so many things that can happen in those little moments.
The ordinary
the ordinary moments.
Absolutely.
And you need to slow down. I mean, that's part of creativity. Pause, breathe.
Don't hustle.
Okay.
And then I wanted you to read the other one.
Yeah, okay. All right. Creativity involves breaking out of expected patterns in order to look at things a different way. So that's Edward de Bono. I don't think that
kind of flows with the other one. It's just finding the unique in the ordinary and the common areas, right. Instead of trying to search for the right moment, the right unique thing. You're gonna find it in when you take a break and pause. That's when you're gonna find your creativity. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you've heard the term "smell of the roses." Take time to smell the roses. There's a lot there. Creativity and imagination can't thrive or grow in a rushed, shoved push.
You can't force it.
You can't force it. You have to be able to have that
And you've
discipline.
said creativity is a verb. You have to put in the action to get that.
And then it's like a muscle too. You grow it, but the more you use it. If you don't use it, it doesn't grow and it starts dying.
You got to exercise it.
You have to exercise it. So
we have a guest today. This is actually a guest episode.
Let's talk about this. This will explain what this is right here.
If you're only listening, you're confused. He's showing his shirt.
Right, yeah. It's like
I'm a listener. He's a watcher.
I am
So
a watcher.
we like we have to remind each other. I'm like, there's
So
people
I'm showing
who
everybody my
are
shirt.
listening.
We're gonna have these shirts online, all the ones I wear for every one of the seasons. But
The last one we'll have to show in the story because it didn't come in time. It was really funny. It was Star Wars.
it was cool. So this one, if you're listening and not watching, it says Bright Side Buggy. So we're gonna explain exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Thank you for that shirt. I love it. I wear it all the time. So our guest, let's say a few things about this gentleman. So this person is responsible indirectly for this format.
Yeah.
He has a podcast, and he had us as father-daughter entrepreneurs in this podcast. And I was going to do this podcast by myself, if you don't know the story, and Megan was helping me as a producer behind the scenes and kind of all that. And then we were guests in this podcast.
It flowed really well.
And it flowed
and
really
we
well.
had this kind of silent connection in the car on the way home.
Exactly.
And I was like,
well, it's actually, we went to IHOP and we had breakfast.
oh yeah. And I was like, so what if I join you?
And I was like, that's a great idea. So we threw everything, the branding,
We
the
just
messaging, restarted. And then 6 months later, we're here. So this gentleman, I'm going to say a quote that I grabbed from his old website. It's still available, but I found it, and it's something that kind of sets tone for this young man. It says, "We are only limited by the things that we allow to limit us. The keys to success and productivity are already in our pocket. You just need someone to show you the lock and encourage you to open the door." This gentleman, they call him Mr. Brightside. He is CEO and founder of Brightside Roofing. He also has a podcast called the Extra Mile Podcast. He's a keynote speaker. He's in the speaking circuit. He is a motivational.
He's a father of two amazing girls.
Absolutely. And his wife, Heather, is an incredible real estate agent and entrepreneur herself. We're just trying to keep up with these guys. So
There's so much.
Why not bring him in and actually have some of his pixie dust raw from you guys? Because that's what we're here to do, to empower and inspire you. And he inspires us. So without further ado, go ahead.
Bobby Jones.
Bobby Jones.
It's such a good stage name.
It is. I love it.
Bobby Jones.
Bobby Jones.
It sounds like a radio host.
By the way, does that microphone look familiar?
It does look a little familiar. It does look a little familiar. Thank you guys for having me here. This is awesome. This is such a dope setup. I'm honored to be on the show, and it's cool. Like, I was so excited to have you guys on my show because you guys were the first father-daughter combination that I had on the show, and having daughters that are in the entrepreneurial space and in the mindset, it was really awesome.
Yeah, and
It was fun.
Yeah. We give you credit. We talk about this all the time because you inspired us. And this setup. I'd rather listen to a father-daughter talk about this stuff than somebody listen to Javi talking about marketing.
Just brings a little spin on it.
For sure.
The branding's a little bit. I had to some concessions to make, on this, but we met in the middle ground, right?
Yeah, because it's important for you to like your brand to share it the best, and I'm sure you understand that too.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not proud of it, then it's going to be hard to market it. So I was like, so can we go a little bit retro?
No, we did. So I think
Remember I said no mountains.
no mountains. Not black and white.
That's the middle ground, right?
yeah, can we meet in the
No
middle?
high ground. You got to go to the middle ground.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So just, and Bobby saw this before it started, and she's kind of telling me what to do, which is kind of the way it works here, which is fine.
I just keep you on track. That's all.
Absolutely. Look, having 3 daughters and a wife, I'm 5th in command in my house.
And the cats.
Bobby knows. He's, he just kind of goes along with the ride.
That's right. There's
a lot of estrogen in our homes.
So as far as introducing yourself, we like to, if you are talking to someone who doesn't know you at all, like, how would you explain you and what you do?
So I like to describe myself as just an underdog entrepreneur. Obviously, most entrepreneurs are underdogs, but, life started out kicking me in the ass, and overcoming those challenges and just learning what was possible has just continued to open doors that I never imagined could be opened, And so for me, it's like pursuing what I never thought was possible.
I love that. And what is Brightside Roofing?
So Brightside Roofing is a residential commercial roofing company here in central Delaware. We specialize in residential replacements. We're actually doing a lot of solar roofing. We have a nailable solar shingle, which is super exciting. And that's been really, really cool. we're just a company that's trying to position themselves as the roofing authority in the area.
And what you're doing is huge steps for the environment,
For sure.
especially what the Earth's dealing with right now. So
Yeah.
it's important to, you know, make your mark. And I think that's like solar roofing is the next thing.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's so cool.
The stuff that we hear him saying and the way he built his business. And there's going to be we're going to fragment this talk today because there's so many things I want to kind of pull out of you and think. And we're going to drill you a little bit. So I'm going to challenge you with some cool questions. They're fun. They're fun.
I love it.
But we do want to send a tone because there's a lot of people who have, who know about Bobby. But as we grow this audience and we build our community of right brainers, there's people that haven't, and there's people that need to hear some of this. So I want you to give us an abbreviated version, but I think people really need to understand how you came to this point. But at the end of this, I want you to talk in depth about the suit. The suit story, because that's an example of somebody using creativity, imagination, and to do that. But let's get.
I almost brought that up in the meeting earlier too.
Okay,
but get us there. But tell us a little about
no problem. I can actually abbreviate this pretty quickly. So, growing up, I was a foster kid, in and out of foster care. So I do know my parents and had a relationship with them, but they struggle with addictions, and so in and out of foster care, and then of course I got in and out of trouble, and then I was in and out of prison, and now I had a miracle moment kind of change the direction of my life, and I say that because that miracle moment, I was freed from prison, and at a time where I was most likely about to do a very long time in prison, and when I was freed from prison, the real prison that I was freed from really wasn't made of concrete and steel. It was all the victim mentality that I had dealt with in my lifetime, the scars of my childhood, and just being a limited person. And then when I came home and I had that miracle happen, I just took ownership of my life, stopped making excuses, and I stopped telling myself no, right? Like, I feel like we always tell ourselves what we cannot do. Right. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let the world tell me what I cannot do, but they're going to have to convince me, because right now I don't believe them. Right now, I'm going to go out here and try, and I'm going to stop telling myself no.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. That's
accountability is really important in those stories, because I feel like, the universe is like, okay, here's your opportunity, but are you going to, be like, oh, I deserve this, or am I going to take accountability, and then how can I make my life better with what happened?
Such a good point, because I had been given chances before, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't seize those moments. And that was the thing. Like, when I got that miracle, I was like, okay, this time there won't be a next time if I don't make this time work, right? It's like, I knew they were no longer playing games with me. And if I got in trouble again, they were going to put me away forever.
And at this time you were married. You had Ariana. Yeah. She was, how old was she?
Yeah, Ariana was born when I was in Smyrna prison. Okay. This was in 2004. Okay. And so by the time I got done with my trouble and going in and out of prison, she was 3 years old. But I have pictures of her newborn in that prison, and I have pictures of her at 3 years old in that prison as well. Amazing. Same spot.
Wow. And so this is actually a good segue, because now fast forward, you're out of jail, and I know the story. So you where can I get a job? I have a record. I have something. Tell us, and take your time, because this is an incredible story of creativity, imagination, and just fortitude, and just pushing in. So give us the story. Yeah.
So there's a author at the time that I really embraced, and his name's Brian Tracy, and he talked about this ideal self, or your self ideal, right? And he's like, imagine this version of you that is successful or happy or whatever it is that you want to become. Imagine what that looks like now. And so in doing this, right, I had this idea, I'm standing in front of this amazing house and awesome cars, and of course the kids and my wife are there, and but in my imagination, I imagined me in a suit, right? You think successful people, you think they're dressed sharp, my that changed a little bit for me as time went on, but
makes you think of Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I was like, man, if I'm going to become something different than I've always been, I've got to start doing something different than I've always done, right? And so I was like, okay, I had learned to talk pretty well because I was put in positions in courtrooms to defend myself to attorneys and prosecutors and judges. And so I had to learn how to talk a little bit more professionally. And so so I embraced that, and then I was like, okay, if I'm going to get something I've never had, I got to do something different. So I borrowed a suit from my cousin. And my cousin is 6'2", by the way.
I was gonna ask, did it fit?
I'm 5'9". Like on a good day, I'm 5'9". So this is a very big suit. But, you know, I was just so convinced that if I was going to get my opportunity, I had to go outside of my comfort zone. And this was definitely uncomfortable. It was too big. It would have probably been more uncomfortable if it was way too small, but we'll get there. So I started showing up to places that I thought might hire me if I could get past the process of checking this box that says I'm a felon. Right. And I was like, if I could just talk to somebody, if I could just let them see who I am, I'll get an opportunity. And so I showed up at a major retail store. It was Walmart right here in Camden, Delaware. And I have this huge suit on, and I walked back to the layaway section, which is where you would report to if you had a job interview. And I show up there and I talk to the lady back there and I say, ma'am, my name is Bobby Jones. I'm here for my 11 o'clock interview. And she says to me, we don't have any interviews scheduled for today. And I'm like, damn. But I stayed strong. I stayed to my, my position. I said, oh, I apologize, ma'am, but I did. I scheduled my interview for 11 o'clock, but no worries. I'll just have a seat here and I'll wait until they're ready. Right? I'm like, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to do this. And so I sit down in the layaway section of Walmart for like 35 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. And I remember it like it was yesterday. This guy's name was Ron. He was an assistant manager. He literally peeks around the corner at me, and that's all I got. And he sees this little scrawny kid in this huge suit, and I'm sure he's thinking to himself, he's like, I've got to at least hear what this guy's got to say.
Like, okay.
And what I never took into consideration at the time was it was getting close to Christmas, right? Holiday season. And I was talking to this gentleman, and he offers me a job, which I think is amazing, except he goes on to tell me that it's going to be a seasonal position, basically telling me in the same sentence that I'm hired, that I'm also going to eventually be fired.
Okay.
Right. And so, but I'm like, hey, listen, I got my shot. You know what I mean? And so I took the job, got the job, and did a lot of other amazing things to secure the job. And it was an incredible, it was my first, it was like my first exposure to what's possible beyond your comfort zone, breaking through these self-limiting beliefs, because everybody told me I couldn't get a good job because of my trouble that I had been into. Right. And I was bought into that until I realized that it wasn't true. And then from that point on, that would be my pursuit. What do I believe about myself?
Yeah, that's powerful.
Right? That is untrue. Like, what am I buying into? What am I operating on as a core belief right now that is just completely untrue? And it was like this pursuit of just challenging those beliefs.
Yeah, being like, I am worthy of success. Like,
absolutely.
No matter
Absolutely.
my
regardless
position.
of your past or anything else.
Now, I remember a pumpkin story,
Oh
and I didn't know if you could bring it up, because that was my favorite.
Yeah, that's so cool. This was some creativity and some definite resourcefulness. No, that's so appropriate for you to bring that up. So during my journey with Walmart, I actually got fired out of nowhere for a little policy issue, and they would actually come back and hire me like 2 months later, which was really interesting, but whatever. But at the time, it was October. It was the beginning of October,
season.
Right? Yeah. It was the beginning of October, and I'm fired, and I've got 2 little girls at home. I've got bills to pay. You know, I've got my wife's income, but it ain't much, and neither was mine to begin with. But and we had no savings, so I was like, "What the hell am I going to do?" Because again, I'm still in a situation where I can't just go get a job as easily as somebody else could. Okay. And so I'm trying to be creative. I'm trying to think of what I can do, and so I have this idea. My cousin and I got to give him credit too. My cousin Chris. Same one I borrowed the suit from, by the way. He and I have this idea of painting pumpkins and selling them. Now, we had experience selling random stuff at flea markets before. CDs, we sold baby bottles. We found a whole pallet of baby bottles one time and sold it. But we took like 20 pumpkins and we painted sports logos on them, like Phillies logos, Eagles logos, whatever, right? And as much as it pains me to say, we did paint a few Dallas Cowboys logos. All right.
It sells.
Just a star, right? Just a star.
Yeah.
It's easy.
And it was very simple, right? We would spray paint the entire pumpkin. We'd clean the pumpkin, spray paint the pumpkin, and then we'd put the logo on, right? And so we had like a little assembly line, and we didn't really know if this was going to take off or not. So we took them to Spence's sale right here in Dover, and by 10 o'clock the first day, we're sold out. I'm like, no
Now, did you
way.
ironically get the pumpkins from Walmart? Or?
No.
Okay.
No,
Like-
that's actually an interesting story too, because the first time, if I'm being completely honest, I had some people like run into a pumpkin patch and grab pumpkins. Just being honest. That was the test run. But then I went to Pfeiffer's and spoke to I'm trying to think of his name right now, but anyway, Mike, he helped us out. So I told him what we were doing, and then he got really interested once he saw the product. So once I showed him what we were doing, he was like, how about we do this? And he's like, I'll give you like, I think it was like 500 pumpkins.
That's a lot of pumpkins.
Right, it is a lot of pumpkins.
Where did you put them?
Just all over the place. Okay. We were living in a trailer park at the time. We had like pumpkins everywhere. So, but he gave me the 500 pumpkins, and then I painted 100 pumpkins and sold them back to him.
Okay.
That's cool.
So they had my pumpkins at Pfeiffer's at the store. They had a whole display of my sports pumpkins. Was it multiple sports? Yeah, all kinds of different sports teams and stuff like that.
That is so cool.
And then we had the rest of those pumpkins to paint and sell. And it just so happened that was the year that the Phillies went to the World Series in 2008.
Okay.
And so we loaded up my Ford Explorer with a mismatched fender full of pumpkins, went up to Philly, and we're selling pumpkins on the side of the road in Philly and in parking lots and stuff like that. I sold one pumpkin for $50 on the side of the road in Philly. No
Megan, we're in the wrong business.
Oh my God. There's something about success, like entrepreneurs who had the struggle first versus entrepreneurs who never did. And there's nothing wrong with those people. It's not their fault they didn't struggle. However, like Barbara from Shark Tank won't invest in someone who didn't have that story. And I think there's just a unique part of us who, if we had to go through that hardship, that just makes us a different type of entrepreneur.
Yes.
I think that's
that allows us to be creative more than someone who didn't have to force it,
Right. Yeah. So it's like a resourcefulness at the time, right? Like you're like tapping into something you didn't even know you had.
What can I do?
Yeah. Because, so it's interesting though. I have a little line that I use. It's like when you start from the bottom, you have very little fear of failure. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so that has its ups and it has its downs.
You're like,
right?
How bad can it get?
Right. And that was my thing. Yeah, like when I eventually would go in to start my business, everybody was like, what if it doesn't work? I was like, well, if it doesn't work, I'll be right back where I am. Right? Like literally right here.
Try something else.
You know what I mean? But when you quit college to go do something, you sacrificed a degree of effort you were putting in one direction, right? Or when I see somebody leave a 6-figure corporate job to go start their business,
you take that safety net away.
To me, that's the courage. Like that's courageous, right? Whereas with me, it was like survival is what motivated me to go forth.
Paying your bills.
And that little, like I said, like I had very little fear of failure because I was pretty close to the bottom at that point. Yeah. So it was like, I didn't have far to go.
You're like, I'm not in jail. So I'm happy with my,
exactly,
I'm just going to
we have perspective that others don't. And again, it's not there's folks that are probably hearing this and I'm like, well, that didn't happen to me. You know, that's okay.
I mean, for sure.
I'm sure someone has some sort of hardship they had to go.
Exactly that.
So, what's interesting about this is like, we don't get to decide how things impact other people, right? So like on paper, and I talk about this often because I really love this conversation. It's on paper, right? If you look at my childhood, right? It's pretty shitty, right? But I'll tell you, there's also moments like where me and my dad were like living in a camper together and didn't have a pot to piss in, or is it okay to curse?
Yes,
okay.
It's okay.
But those were some of my happiest moments too, right? So it's like you don't know what you don't know, and when you look back on something, you're like, oh my gosh, it was so bad. But if I didn't really know it in the moment, then why am I pretending that it was so traumatizing if I didn't know at the time that it was any different than what anybody else was experiencing?
That's a really good point.
And so what I say with this is like somebody who had a very good life, but maybe had a bad birthday at 9 years old and something happened, or maybe a family fault or something like that, that could have been more traumatizing to that individual than my entire childhood was to me.
Right.
And so like when we talk about our suffering, there are people I know who, and I'll bring up Kevin Mitten. Kevin Mitten's a great example of this. Love Kevin. He was on my podcast and we're like yin and yang because of my background and his. But when you talk to Kevin, like there's a degree of pressure, right? When you're taking over a family business, right? Like I never had to experience that kind of pressure. Like everybody is expecting you to succeed and do this. And it's like, what if you don't? And the worries and concerns that go into that. There's a lot, man, that.
Great point. And I'm going to piggyback. A good friend of ours, all of us, Michael Faber, talks about everybody has their hard.
That's right.
And so our minds can't differentiate. The same thing happens in your brain when you're an adversity comes in, regardless of the intensity.
That's right. Yeah.
So everybody has their hard. So I guess that's a good one there.
Yeah.
What do you want? Okay, we're gonna shift gears to something a little light, and then
Yeah.
we're gonna come back around. So
Cool. That's a good time to do it. We went deep there for a second.
Minus the
coffee,
pumpkin.
coffee. We are.
Is that your safe word?
I'm like, cancel.
No, my safe thing is this microphone. I keep touching it.
Oh my god, he touches his microphone.
The thing
so
is,
much.
right? I know it bothers her, so now I just do it out of spite.
So we wanted to know if do you drink coffee?
I do.
Okay. Do you have a go-to order?
What's your go-to?
I feel like it tells a lot about a person.
Oh, so actually, my go-to would be a cup of coffee at home. We
Okay.
use Cafe Bustelo,
Nice.
and we use nut pods in our coffee only, which is a oat milk creamer, but no sugar at all.
Okay.
We were just talking about oatmeal.
Yeah. And so we're trying to, as I sit here and drink my sugar-filled Red Bull.
Heart attack in a can.
Yeah. I haven't had one of these in a while, but I was like, I gotta go. I'm going on the show. I need a little bit more. I need a little kick.
I've never seen you not pumped up. I didn't think you needed the rest.
I had a long poker game last night, so I had to
Did
recharge.
it go
How did you do?
bad
How did you
or?
do?
Oh, I did really good until I didn't.
Okay.
So,
So
but
it's a nut pod.
yeah, so we Heather started a Whole30 diet a couple months back, and we found these nut pods that were Whole30 approved, and they actually have a great like flavor to them for a coffee that's not, or a creamer that's not
No, just
sweetened
hot
at
coffee?
all.
Just
Yes,
plain.
just hot coffee. Yeah. So
Do you? I need for you to ask him a question because I have to touch the button
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
camera. But when we start, we're going to start with the first one here because we want to really challenge you today and get you to think, and not that you're not doing that already, but that first one.
So we
ask him a
wanted to
question now.
know what do people misunderstand about Bobby Jones the most? And it could be misunderstand about Brightside, like Mr. Brightside, or Bobby.
yeah, no, this
if
is
you
a great,
feel like there's
great
something
question.
you'd like to address.
Yeah, there's a couple things. One, nothing's ever perfect, right? And I don't have it all figured out. A lot of times people think that, the way that you present yourself on social media is that everything is always perfect. I see just as many trials as anybody else does. I make just as many mistakes as anybody else does. But when you're pushing through, I choose, right, to celebrate my wins. I can talk about all the losses because there's plenty, but I choose to celebrate my wins, and that's what you're going to see on social media. But I'm making mistakes every single day. It's a requirement to success. I have to fail in order to win.
Yeah.
And so I think that, some people look at maybe my social media presence or my, my videos, and they think that I feel like I have it all figured out. I don't. Like one of my biggest core values as an individual is humility, right? It's just knowing that I don't know.
Yeah, because if you think you do, something's wrong. Like if you think
something's
there's no more education to learn,
Yeah, if you think
you gotta check yourself.
You gotta check yourself. There's a problem there. There's a word I know, and we all operate under, but I know it's really another one of your core values, and that's gratitude.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit from that about.
I mean, look.
I know that's because I've known you for a while, and I know that that's a big. And I see it in your face, and I want you to share that with us.
Of course, like man, it's so interesting. Like, I can get emotional quick on this, right? It's because like I've already won.
Amen.
I've already won. Like right now, I didn't go into the details of the sentence or anything like that, but right now I'm supposed to be 14 years into a 33-year prison sentence. Yet here I am with you awesome people on this podcast.
Oh my gosh.
that's so
You
cool.
understand? Like
I got
I've already won. Like I've already won. Like this, there's nothing that can. I mean, obviously, I pray for the health and wellness of the people that matter to me and my loved ones and my family. But there's nothing this world can do to me that's going to change my appreciation for the way that I've been given another shot at this thing called life.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
And
Thank you for sharing
with that story, you share it a lot on social media. So I wanted to know if you feel like TikTok has negatives to it with going viral, and have you experienced any hardships with that, with people not understanding and judging, or has it been pretty positive?
For the most part, it's been positive, but yeah, I mean, of course, people, people.
Because TikTok can be brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you can.
So I wanted to address that.
Because you do have a few videos that pretty much jumped pretty high and done very well about your story.
Yeah. So on TikTok, I have 140,000 followers. It's pretty much 2 videos that went viral to get me there. So there's a couple of things that come up as negatives from TikTok. One is when you get that virality, there's this expectation that your content is going to stay consistent. And
it's a lot of pressure.
We're busy. Like I'm busy. I don't have time to like.
And it's usually the video you didn't really try too hard on that does really well.
And then the other side is if you think about the people that I attracted to my page, it's not also the people that are like I would deliver my roofing message or some of the other things that I so I can create roofing content quick because I'm doing it every single day.
Yeah.
But that isn't what those people came for.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the challenge for me on TikTok. But as far as the hate goes, again, you know, when you got gratitude and in consideration, right? Like anytime somebody's got something negative to say about me, I immediately think about what's going on in their world.
What's happening to them.
Like what is going on in your world where trying to make me feel bad is making you feel better. Yeah. Like to me, I immediately go to that place. Whatever you've got going on in your life, I hope you get it worked out because, you know, because it's
easy to get defensive immediately.
Right. Hey, before we jump into these questions, I want to touch a little bit about Brightside. You know, Brightside. How long has you've had this in business?
So we started Brightside officially in September of 2013.
Okay.
You say we, so did you start with someone or just you?
I did, yeah. So me, my uncle, and my cousin started Brightside, and it was originally Brightside Building and Design, and it was aimed at being a porch, deck, patio company that also did roofing. And in 2014, we split ways. We were still, you know, cordial and good with each other, but I took Brightside Roofing and went to the right, and they kept Brightside Building and Design and went to the left. And then I ended up getting an opportunity in 2015, beginning of 2016, to take over. And so we became one again, and we started to focus more and more on roofing until eventually those other offerings have gone away, and we've become a specialist by way of roofing and residential roofing, commercial roofing, repairs, all the things we've already mentioned.
Big footprint.
Earlier.
How does one come into that career path? So, like, where did it come from?
You laughing? Why are you laughing?
Because, like, it's like how you just like, I think roofs. Like, you just wake up one day and you're like,
this is a good question.
I love it.
So, yeah, I didn't grow up thinking one day
I'm going to build roofs. Because you haven't, right?
I'm going to have a roofing replacement company. No, yeah, the truth is I've never done a roof before in my life. I think I banged a few shingles. One of my guys corrected me a couple months ago. He said, "No, you banged a few shingles on this lady had like a decorative well out front of her house that she asked us to replace the roof on. So it was like literally I'm standing.
You're right there,
and, like,
just hammering
the shingles in front of me.
I think that counts.
That counts.
Yeah,
I think
that counts. Okay, cool. I'm qualified now. So what happened was I did end up losing my job at Walmart, and I, again, in panic, was looking for a job, and I found this job that was posted on Craigslist, and it was passing out flyers door to door. It really wasn't well described in the ad, and I was like, I don't know.
Like you could have gotten kidnapped.
Maybe,
it was a little sketchy.
Yeah, they'd probably give me back.
Craigslist.
I mean, he has just dated himself saying Craigslist.
I love Craigslist.
I know, totally.
Yeah, so it was on Craigslist, and so I checked this thing out, and it's called canvassing, and we're knocking on doors, door to door, in neighborhoods all over the peninsula. Really, we'd travel hours sometimes, and we would knock on doors and set up estimates for the roofing salespeople to come behind us and hopefully sell a roof. And I was like the first job that I
marketing?
got. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was prospecting, right? Like definitely going out there and trying to qualify leads. And so, so once I got the job, I was like, oh, that was easy. Let me just like lean into this for a while. And so I started crushing it with that responsibility. And then they came to me and was like, do you want to talk about maybe becoming a salesperson? And I was like, well, explain that to me. And they were like, well, it's commission only. And I was like, what does that mean? Because I had no idea, right?
You're like, what?
And they're like, well, if you don't sell anything, you're not going to get paid. But then they followed that up with, but if you sell a lot,
you get paid.
You're going to get paid a lot.
I love it.
I was like, you should have led with that one, buddy.
The incentive.
And so it was the first time in my life that, outside of the ordinary, you work hard, you'll get a promotion, and like life will continue to elevate. But this was the first time in my life, if I work hard this week, I'm going to get more money this week, right? And I'm like, okay. So I went through the training, and they sent me that one night. They were like, we've got a couple extra appointments this evening. Would you mind running one? Because we don't have anybody to run this lead for us. And I was like, all right.
Nice.
Right. I was like, I'm not getting any younger, and I wasn't through my training yet, but I'd seen enough, I think, to do it. Right. So I go out, I'm in the house 3 hours, and I leave with a signed contract and a check. And what I didn't know is that nobody had ever done that before.
Okay.
The first lead, first appointment, coming out of training, nobody had ever sold that appointment. And I didn't know that. They didn't expect me to go sell it. So I just went out like with that expectation. But then I sold a lot and ended up being salesman of the month pretty much every month for like the next 4 or 5 months. And it changed my life in the way that I didn't know like sales was this thing, right? Like, and then I kind of became obsessed over selling. And so through that, I had an opportunity to start a business. And then, of course, Brightside evolved from that.
For those of you who don't know who Bobby Johnson is, obviously you know a lot more now, but also, and even those who know him from other circles, this gentleman, his sales experience and, is legendary. And obviously he's a very humble guy, but from the outside in, that's your space.
Yes.
You're very, very good at it. So look him up, because to be able to do, roofing is a very crowded space in the trades are. So your business, your company has risen. You've taken this with your team to a level of being in the top,
and you're offering things that
of the
other
state
people
of
aren't.
Delaware.
And also I feel like just from the outside in, because I haven't used, I don't have a house. However, I see from your brand, I see positivity, I see a community, I see a family. And I think that makes you stand out a lot too. So I love names of businesses. So with the Brightside, was that easy to come up with? Were you just like,
Good question. Gosh, that's such a good question. All right. So my first roofing company, when we left the company that I was selling for, I started a business with another partner that ended up not doing well. And I was able to exit that one safely and start Brightside. That name of that company was Dreamview Exteriors.
Okay.
Loved the name. Hated the logo.
Okay.
But I loved the name. And then we were thinking of a name for the new company. And so I got hung up on DreamWorks. This is what I wanted Brightside to be.
Okay.
And
like the animation company?
Yes. Because of the instant familiarity and what we were doing. But we looked
They
at...
like sue them.
Yeah. But we looked at, so what we wanted name familiarity, right? One of the things about Dreamview that worked really well is when we started it, people acted like we had been around forever. They felt like they had heard of us. They felt like they had familiarity with us.
It's sticky.
It's like established.
Right? And so like when we started to think about names, we really wanted something that people were already familiar with. Right. And then when we thought about like the roofing area, we know that like nobody likes replacing their roof, right? And we wanted to put a positive spin on something that wasn't really ideal or appealing to people, right? Like doing decks and porches and patios, people can get excited about that stuff, but nobody gets excited about replacing their roof. They get relieved by replacing their roof, but they don't get excited about it.
Yeah, people don't go, honey, I think we need to replace our roof.
I feel like the excitement can come from the solar panels. For sure.
And we create excitement through our products and our warranties and the aesthetics and understanding the different qualities.
And your funny
videos.
Yeah. Check them out online.
But the name Brightside came from this concept of let's take this negative thing people don't like and let's try to put a positive spin on it. So our original slogan was no one likes replacing their roof, so look on the bright side.
Yeah, I love it.
And that was our slogan.
And that's fantastic. And I want to apologize about this because if you look at the coffee mug up there, it says, we like coffee on the dark side. You yelled at me. You called me. He's like, Javi, really? It says, I like my coffee on the dark side, but that's more of a Star Wars thing. There's nothing against Bobby Jones.
The dark side.
No, but we have the Tank Top Tommy video where
he's
the
dark side. I knew it was Tommy. I couldn't remember.
Dark Side Roofing.
I love it.
Tank Top Tommy from Dark Side Roofing hates us. We didn't even know he exists.
That's a way of being creative of how do we make roofs fun?
Yes.
I know, and he has. I mean, I've admired Bobby for a long time, and I have now the pleasure with my company, High Ground Creative, that we're helping him in some capacity. With your marketing and stuff. But it's a partnership, and I love that.
Absolutely.
I think we need to challenge him. That first one, I think we've already answered. The second one that we highlighted, number 7 on the second one. No, flip that over. No, this one here. Number 7.
Number
Let's
7.
ask him that question. I think that's a good one.
If you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write about?
I think if I had to write one, it would be my story first, and then we have a concept called the extra mile mindset that is basically the book that I would love to write to help people get out of their own way. And it's based on a quote Brian Tracy had that says, "Your success in life will be in direct proportion to what you do after you do what you are expected to do."
Can you repeat that?
Say that again.
Say that again. And say, look, right there.
My brain didn't register
I
it.
know, it's fantastic. But
So your success in life will be in direct proportion to what you do after you do what you are expected to do.
okay, that's
Right?
Wow.
That's really good.
And to me, that describes this extra mile mindset, right? Like everything above and beyond the norm or the standard is an investment into your life and to the outcomes that will come from that, right? It's like whatever you're going to do beyond the minimum is going to be a direct investment into the elevation of your life.
You know, gosh, you inspire the heck out of me, Bobby. We picked some of these questions to stomp people.
I just thought of
and,
another
and
one.
Bobby just like bam, 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 just push.
So
Go ahead.
So one thing about Bobby is anytime I talk to him, I would never not hear a book quote. Oh, it will happen. So with that being said, what's your favorite book if you had to pick one? Because you have read so many because you quote them all the time.
I think he's got photographic
I feel like
memory or
half
something,
of
'cause
his
he can-
vocabulary is just quotes from books, which is not a bad thing.
No.
Mine is quotes from The Office, but
I can do those too.
but yeah, I just as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking for more books to read, and I feel if you could, even 2 is fine. If you could recommend to our audience, what to read.
Yeah, I think it's hard not to answer this question without mentioning Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill, yeah.
Grow Rich.
Think and grow rich.
Think and Grow Rich. Okay.
Yeah.
I have it. I can give it to you.
Cool.
But gosh, there's so many.
Or the
books.
Habits one. What was that one?
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits.
No, the 7. Is
The
it?
7 Habits of Highly
Yeah, that
Effective
one.
People.
Yeah,
Stephen
yeah.
Covey.
Yeah,
That one's
good one.
really
It's
good.
incredible.
Yeah, you guys are pinning me down on a question I do not have an answer to, but I'm gonna just
That's what we're
shout out.
trying to do.
I'm gonna
Success.
shout out a few. I'm sorry, I can't not
That's
do
fine.
this in
More
response to
books.
this.
I love reading, so.
This one, in combination with our conversation today, Underdog Advantage by Dean Graziosi, such a great book. It is a way to harness this underdog mentality that we oftentimes have at the beginning of our venture, but sooner or later, we no longer become the underdog, right? How often does the underdog, Tom Brady is an example,
Yeah,
how many underdogs have we seen become the favorite, right?
Yeah.
And so like, how do you harness that energy when you're no longer considered the underdog? And how do you use that still throughout your life and throughout your journey? And that's a great book.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you because,
Yeah.
okay, this reminds me. I was playing Mario Kart with my 13-year-old yesterday. And I said to her, by the way, she smokes me every single time, which is really frustrating. Like that's the evens out the playing field with adults and children. But in light of what you're saying, I don't like being first in these circuits. I like to be second or third and then push in.
Yes.
Because when I'm first, I'm like looking behind me every time somebody, the turtle's going to hit me or one of the bananas or something. So I feel more motivated when I'm not quite there and I'm a little bit on the underdog. So then I can push through in that. So that just reminded me, I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody. But I did not win. Just want to make sure.
She's good.
She's really good.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's just
She's
like
cocky. That's the difference
So
between
we're-
me and her. I'll just be silent and win. Because I think it's more humiliating to people, but she's like, "Ha ha, I passed
Yeah,
you."
yeah. So she was
but then
she was running
it bites her in the butt
So
when
she's
she
in your head.
loses.
Oh,
so she's in your head. Yeah.
And then when she loses, she gets really mad.
So I know I interrupted that, but
No.
how many more books you got there?
Yeah. So
The Underdog Advantage.
the underdog advantage, and again,
Show them that. That's
yeah.
it. Underdog.
And then this is the one Ariana did, which is the Statue of the David. What's a more iconic underdog story than David versus Goliath?
David with
But to me, like it's like that, almost like what we were talking about earlier. This fear of failure is not really present when you're the underdog. You're already considered. You're already going to lose. In fact, I bring up a lot of sports analogies, but Nick Foles won the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
And went in, not just won the Super Bowl, he went in and crushed it. And the reason is he had nothing to lose. He had already been considered out. He already had been told, like when Carson Wentz went down and our season ended, right? Everybody counted us out. We were the first round bye. We had the best record in the league, and everybody said that we could not win without Carson Wentz. And Nick Foles went on a run, embarrassing every team that he played after that.
Yeah, it's very inspiring.
But the thing is, right, is like if you take Nick Foles and you put him in a starting position, saying to him, hey, listen, you're the starter, and we are depending on you to win football games, he panics. But when he has nothing to lose and goes out there and he can play football in his space, he's killer. He did it in 2013 for the Eagles when he threw 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions behind Michael Vick when Michael Vick went out. So like we can understand this position of the underdog and use it powerfully because you can go forth with that nothing to lose mentality.
That's
you know what I mean?
Pivotal to success.
Yeah.
Because like if you cold call somebody, right? Like we oftentimes psych ourselves out before we make the call. And we're nervous about making the call. The whole time you've got nothing to lose. Like you already have a no right now because you're not even giving yourself the chance to get the yes. Right. And so it's like this nothing to lose mentality that we have to continue to embrace when we do have something to lose.
So it's a mindset that you can put yourself in.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of no. That's the worst thing you're going to get.
And exactly. It's like, when people negotiate, what's the best position of leverage is willingness to walk away from it any single time. Because nobody can, how can you even counter that? Right. So if you're in that mindset.
The Go-Giver is another one.
Go-Giver, okay.
The Go-Giver, Bob Berg, one of my favorite books. And I could go on and on, but those are some real
awesome.
heavy highlights.
Let's wrap it up with one more last question. Okay. I think Bobby's going to like this one because I believe you're now in that stage of your career. You're just getting started, but you have enough behind you of an example to inspire people to be able to say, okay, something, if he can do it, I can do it. And I know that you like to operate from that. So the question is, what is one piece of advice you would give someone starting out their career, or even further, starting out a business, going into that entrepreneur space? If there's any one advice that that person that just getting in there because they feel they need to go there, but they don't have any type of direction.
This is so good. I'm trying to think of who said this. He said, they asked, what's one piece of advice like you give somebody who's just starting out in entrepreneurship and like to make them feel better about doing it? And he's like, if I have to make somebody feel better about going into entrepreneurship is not for them. No. Right?
Exactly.
And it's so crazy.
Well, that wasn't my question.
I know. I'm going back to it.
Okay.
The first thing that came to my head was, don't do it.
Don't do it.
No, but there is a lot to this, gosh, I talk about this often. You've heard me talk about this before. Barnum and Bailey, if you haven't seen the movie, The Greatest Showman,
the
musical, right?
Good movie.
And Michael Faber recommended it to me on the way back from the men's retreat, and I
so
literally
good.
watched it on the plane ride back.
So good.
And there's this subtle little small scene that happens that I feel like most people overlook, and it's where Barnum and Bailey are having an argument, and Bailey is basically trying to get P.T. Barnum to calm down. He's like risking too much, and he's like, how are you going to pull this off? He says, well, I already got a loan against this company and our assets. And he says to him, you're going to risk everything that you've built. And he says, how do you think I built it?
Oh.
And to me, it's like, that's the shit, right? Is like, we have to.
He's like, I already risked everything.
Right.
I'm just risking it again.
And to me, like, man, if you're really going to seize this thing called life, you got to take risks, man. Right. If you're playing it safe, I promise you, you're holding yourself back too at the same time.
And even more so if you're listening and you're a young entrepreneur, just risk, especially if you're in your 20s. I mean,
right.
Exactly. I mean, I even
I try and remember that all the time.
Even me, I mean, early 50s, you still have to risk. There's also calculated risk and dumb risk, right? So risk, but it's still a risk. You have to be able to see that, but you have to be willing to lose something. Playing it safe, I love that. It's not the place. If you're trying to go into this,
entrepreneurship's not for you.
That's not for you.
Yeah,
if you want to be comfortable.
Yeah. Right.
We get in fetal position.
You're gonna have a mental breakdown
every week. It's just how long we stay there.
Yeah.
We don't stay there too long.
You just have your moment, and then.
But the thing, it's one of the things we do is we go and are part of communities and people who sharpen us.
That's right.
And Bobby and I are part of several communities together, and Megan now is getting involved in a lot of these. And I can't. It's not for the faint of heart, but also it's a place you can't go by yourself.
It's a good.
It's
community.
lonely, but you don't have to be alone.
That's right.
You know, so that's a big part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and you want to be around people who are not, like when I first started Brightside, I had somebody close to me say, like I told you guys, what if it doesn't work out? Well, if it doesn't work out, right, I'm gonna be right back here. But what if it does work out? Like, why didn't we lead with that question, right? Like, why isn't that the question? What if it does work? Well, if it does work, our whole lives are gonna change. Right. And it's like, right. But it's not because we, especially, and it comes from a place of love for those people that have their own self-limiting beliefs that match up with what they're trying to project to you. They are coming from a place of consideration, but they also are projecting their own self-limiting beliefs onto you. And what happens here is if they watch you succeed at something they have convinced themselves they cannot do, they have to have a very uncomfortable conversation with themselves. Right. And it's like, that's the thing. So putting yourself in the right communities and then your desire. A lot of people say they want this, okay? So many people want something, right? I want 6-pack abs. I don't want it bad enough to diet and go to the gym every single day. So do you want what you want bad enough to do the work that is going to be required?
Yeah.
That's the question.
People need more real talk towards entrepreneurs. When someone comes to me asking, like, should I get my business license? I'm like, look, I'm going to be real with you. Are you going to do this in 5 years? Because if not, just stop. Like, you got to be in it. And it's okay to change your mind and switch and whatever, but you got to be ready to go all in.
Right, yeah. I mean, like, if you don't want it bad enough.
We need to stop sugarcoating it. It's a lot.
But we would not trade it for anything.
No, I absolutely love it. I don't want a boss.
Megan is 25 and she's unemployable, and I failed at a lot of things as a father. But one of that spirit and that mindset, I can think. I'm glad she has that
in the humblest way possible. But I can't do it. But oh my God, this is such a good episode.
Yeah, I think we could talk for the entire day, and thank you so much for being here with us.
And thanks for being the reason we're here.
Yeah, Bobby Jones.
We owe it to you.
You guys put the work in. This is an incredible space.
And actually, a lot of the look and feel and the setup is I borrowed from some of the stuff that Bobby.
We were like, how do you do this?
Yeah, I remember. So so let's wrap this up. Where can we find you online and different?
So as you stated earlier, my social media profiles are mainly a variation of Mr. Brightside. So Instagram's probably going to be the place that's going to be the easiest to connect. It's Mr. Brightside, but it's separated, started, and ended with underscores. So it's _Mr. _Bright _side _.
Okay.
And if you search my name on TikTok or other places, you'll be able to find me. Facebook, it's Bobby Jones, and happy to connect with anybody that would love to chat.
And then your website is trustbrightside.com for the roofing
Brightside,
company.
Trustbrightside.com, and it's a pretty nice looking website done by
and,
the man across the table.
Yeah, if you're listening, go change the world and buy a solar roof because it's very beneficial for the earth.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, let's help the earth one roof at a time.
So what do you want to tell our right brainers to?
Yeah,
to send us
so
off?
well, officially you are now called right brainers. We finally found what to call you. So
we're
you're
building
welcome.
our community. Everybody, God gave us a brain that has two sides.
But
Left
you can
right brain.
You can listen on multiple platforms. We have you always have to help me. Spotify,
Amazon, Google, and Apple. And then also, if you can watch our pretty faces
on YouTube,
on YouTube, we have the podcast there as well, and we're going to be throwing a lot of stuff on YouTube Shorts and Reels and
other little things happening soon.
Yeah, we're coming soon after you. Infiltrate the news feed with Javi and Megan.
But with that being said, go create something.
Go create something.